right off the bat, Dallas, who was on last night with Luka and Porzingis in the pregame on TNT, Charles Barkley was talking about Porzingis posting up more. Now, let's leave aside for a second that Porzingis has a center of gravity that's 13 and a half feet high, and he has a hard time getting guys on the block. Just conceptually, that comment kind of, struck a chord with me because from my perspective, I really like some of the synergy Dallas has with the way they're integrating Powell as a roll man and Porzingis as a popper and all that. So, Steve, what do you think about sort of the way they're running that offense? It's the best offense of all time right now after 20 games.
I think there's a bridge between what you're thinking and what Charles was saying. I think Porzingis, because of his size, you expect him to dominate in a certain area. But I think conceptually what we're looking at, Porzingis isn't exactly the strongest post player. Doesn't mean he can't do well down there. But with what Dallas is trying to do with Luka, the thing they have to do is make sure they keep defenses honest. And I think that may be more to what Chuck was speaking about as far as they have to throw it to him down there sometimes. Because I think what's happening is a lot of teams are just deciding, okay, you're going to put Luka and KP in pick and roll. We're going to switch it. We're going to give you a mismatch. What are you going to do now? That's going to limit his ability to roll. That's going to limit the defense having to suck in and help and limit the rotations as far as kicking the ball back out. So if you're not throwing it into him in the post with a mismatch, you're not getting as much out of it. So I think what we're seeing, what we should see going forward, is they got to mix it up. Because what you're saying about Powell is correct. Him being a 5 as a roller with KP spaced helps Dallas out overall. It opens up Powell as a threat because of his role, because the floor spaced. But I think what has to happen is you got to mix in Porzingis post-ups. You have to give him a touchdown there to keep the defense honest. If you're not going to give him a look down there, defenses are going to switch that pick and roll, or they're not going to give it as much attention, and you're just going to open yourself up to not having the same rotation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even so specifically on that, if for those who haven't studied the Mavs playbook this year, they use a lot of two-screen action, stagger screen, off-ball, that motion stuff with stagger screens off-ball. And they do that, I think, a lot with Porzingis and Powell as the screener, and you get this synergy. But what's interesting to me about what you're talking about is if I were to ignore the fact that Porzingis is 7'3", he essentially functions like a small or a wing on those sets. Do you agree with that?
Correct.
Right.
That's what his ability is. He has the height, and so you can bring the big out, but he's basically functioning as a smaller wing, a guard. So he's going to be spaced, and it's going to let Powell roll, and you hope that creates the advantage. But you're entirely correct on
right.
that.
So to me, I'm thinking about the options off of some of those sets. Like he'll back cut or head back door or slip, but it never really materializes like it's not designed to get a post up. Let's put it that way. Right.
That's true. Yeah, that's correct. It's not designed for a KP post up. It's designed to force pressure on that 4-man to have to think, do I have to help on Powell's role?
Right.
The big has to help as Luka's coming off. So the biggest thing is, how does Dallas continue to put pressure on that 4-man? Because the more they play, the more tape's going to be out there. And if they see that, okay, we don't really have to worry about that kick, we can figure that out, that limits Powell's ability as a roll man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so you're saying diversity, like another option as a counter that they could go to as the season goes on would be to spring or turn some of those things into Porzingis post up. I mean, it sounds like you are sort of, I don't want to say buying into entirely what Charles is saying, but you're advocating for that as something that will actually help them as the season goes on.
If they get the mismatch, I think it does. I don't think you have to force feed them. Like, it's not like you have to just post them up on the block and go right to them. I think it's just something you have to throw out there to keep the defense honest, to let you know, hey, this is something we can go to, something we will go to. And now you're second guessing, hey, okay, I don't know if I want to do this. Because the secret sauce is really Porzingis at the 5. Dallas hasn't gone to it that much, but that's what their secret sauce is going to be going forward. So it's to unlock all the potential they have offensively with two bigs playing, you got to have one being a roller and one being a shooter, and it can't just be KP being a shooter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he's just a shooter, you're limiting kind of everything offensively, because now Powell's going to roll. I know KP is going to pop. So as a defense, I can sit and know, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen in a coach's meeting. I could say, hey, this is what they're trying to do. We know Powell's going to roll. We know KP is going to pop. So Dallas has to find ways to kind of mix that up, even when they're playing together, so that the defense has to think of it as a threat instead of this is an automatic. We know exactly what's going to happen.
How much of that do you think falls on Porzingis? I mean, I joked about the high center of gravity, but where do you stand on him as a guy who can punish post Mitch? Boy, this is a hard one to say. Let me try it again.
It's okay. It's all right. Just go really quick.
Punish post mismatches right now. And, it's one thing to get a switch and have a strongish guard hold you at 18 feet. But, I think ideally for this to work, you want him to get on the block and use his height. How much do you buy into Porzingis having a game like that would make those mismatches and plays efficient?
Well, I mean, he's so tall. Even if they just threw it to him on the block or at the elbow and he rose up and shot, that's a pretty decent look, right?
Well, I think they have that at the elbow right now. I think, right? So the question is, can you improve upon that? Because that might be okay depending on, if he's 14 feet and he's got a clean catch. But some of these are getting out to like 15, 17, 18 feet. And in my opinion, he can get that whenever.
Yes, and he can get that on bigs. So if he's going to pop and be at that range, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same efficiency. It's not going to put the same pressure on defenses. If he can get to the block, even if it's the mid post, that becomes a different story. Maybe a defense throws a double at him, and now you can open some more things up. But if he's going to pop and operate the same as he does against bigs, it's not going to have the same pop.
Thanks for listening. You can find the full episode of This Thinking Basketball podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts.